Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. We've got a top 10 showdown in the Sugar Bowl as number 7 Baylor takes on number 8 Ole Miss in a matchup between two very surprising teams and two fantastic offenses. Baylor enters this game, guys, at 11-2, champions of the Big 12. The Bears doing all of that just 1 year after going 2-7. Ole Miss, on the other hand, coming in at 10-2, the only losses coming to Alabama and Auburn, in doing so under Lane Kiffin behind a fantastic offense. Of course, what else would you expect? Guys, this game is going to have just a little bit of everything, and to me, there is no better way to conclude New Year's Day football, no way to conclude the first day of the new year than with this Sugar Bowl, and one that's shaping up to be an instant classic down in New Orleans. So guys, welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, ready to break down everything you need to know for the Sugar Bowl, and of course, sharing our official prediction as well. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. If you want the spread pick for this Sugar Bowl, if you want the spread pick for all the other college football bowl games, including the national championship, if you want the spread picks for all of the NFL playoff games, thegridironexpert.com and our expert picks, it's the place for you. One low time fee gets you a year-long membership. So you buy now, you get it all the way through 2022. Everything we have to offer in 2022 if you buy right now. So take advantage of it, guys. We're beating out over 80% of the national analysts. We do that every single year. The numbers speak for themselves. Take advantage of it and start winning today. Again, the link down in the description below over at thegridironexpert.com. So let's just go ahead and dive into the Sugar Bowl, guys. Again, I am so excited for this matchup. I'm an offensive guy. I love shootouts. I love high-scoring affairs. I love teams that have great offenses, whether it's on the ground or through the air. This is my type of game. So I am very, very excited for the Sugar Bowl. And I want to start with Baylor, the designated road team down in New Orleans. And I want to talk about their offense first. And really, when you look at this offense, guys, talk about balance. Dave Aranda has done a phenomenal job balancing out this Baylor offense. One that was just mediocre last year when they went 2-7 has now become one of the most balanced and electric offenses, dare I say, in the country. Certainly in the Big 12, but up there in the country as well. The Bears, guys, are averaging 32.5 points per game, 215.6 passing yards per game, 214.7 rushing yards per game. You can't get more balance than that. Less than a yard. 0.9 of a yard separating the rushing numbers from the passing numbers. I mean, that's insane. That's insane. You're going to be hard-pressed to find any team in the country that can put up numbers like that, at least that close together when it comes to balance. It is looking like, for the Sugar Bowl, that Baylor will have their star quarterback in Gary Bohannon playing. We know that he got hurt earlier in the year, actually towards the end of the year. I believe it was against Kansas State. We knew he got hurt in that game. He was unable to play in the Big 12 championship game against Oklahoma State. It appears that he will be ready to play for this Sugar Bowl, and that's huge. That's huge for Baylor because his dual threat ability was crucial all the way up until he got hurt. It was crucial. Gary Bohannon got them in a position to get to that Big 12 championship game. Over 2,100 yards, 17 touchdowns, ran for over 300 yards and 9 touchdowns as well. The dual threat is so key, guys, because Baylor loves to run the football. And adding that extra element where if you're an Ole Miss defense or any defense, knowing, hey, not only do we have to focus on their running backs, we got to focus on their quarterback too. A guy that can extend his plays, can escape the pocket, make plays with his legs. It makes life so difficult for opposing defenses. And you look at Baylor's rushing attack, guys. A rushing attack that, as we mentioned, is averaging nearly 215 yards per game. Abram Smith leads the way with over 1,400 yards and 12 touchdowns. Has 8 games with at least 100 rushing yards. Right behind him, you've got Tristan Ebner, 763 yards, 2 touchdowns. This backfield and this offense, guys, is not short of talent. Factor in Tyquan Thornton as the top wide receiver. We're not even talking that much about him. We're talking more about the running game here. Baylor is loaded offensively and has seen a resurgence, again, after a mediocre 2020. Ole Miss, we know all about their offense. If you're going to be coached by Lane Kiffin, you're going to have a dang good offense. And that, of course, has been the case this year. It has been the Matt Corral show all year long. The Rebels averaging 35.9 points per game, over 500 yards per game. And again, it's all about Matt Corral, their quarterback who has thrown for over 3,300 yards, 20 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, has also rushed for 597 yards and 11 touchdowns. And I want to circle that 4 interception mark. You know, if you look at Matt Corral last year, he was putting up good numbers. But so many multi-interception games. What do you have? 6 against Arkansas, 5 against LSU. 4 interceptions now over the course of the entire year. 12 games, 4 interceptions. Had more than that in 2 games. More than 4 interceptions in 2 games individually last year. So his ball security, his game, his IQ, everything has developed so much and improved so much under Lane Kiffin, making him one of the higher rated draft prospects, at least among quarterbacks, going into the 2022 NFL Draft. Here's the thing though. When you focus so much on Ole Miss's passing attack, one that averages over 280 yards per game, people sometimes forget about the rushing attack. One that averages 224.3 rushing yards per game. One that, yes, Corral plays a major role in, but is led by Jerrion Ealy, who has 703 yards and 5 touchdowns. You've got Snoop Connor. You've got Corral. You've got Henry Parrish Jr. Every single one of those players rushing for at least 500 yards. But the one concern I have for Ole Miss, is the only concern, offense is great, is the fact that I feel like they're getting stagnant. Everybody's going to blow up at that, right? Look at the numbers. Ole Miss, they're averaging 35.9 points per game. Those stats were boosted just a little bit from early season performances. Blowouts against Austin Peay, Tulane, Louisville. Ole Miss has not hit over 31 points in their final 7 games. They've scored right at 31 points in 4 of their final 7 games, winning each of those by about 10 points per game. Games against Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, got a win against Tennessee in there, win against LSU in there. But they have not eclipsed 31 in the last 7 games. They were held to under 30 against Liberty and Texas A&M. So something to keep your eye on as you go into this bowl game, guys, the Sugar Bowl, is Ole Miss's offense is great. They have the talent there. But they're maybe not scoring as much as they want to. Not as much as maybe they should. And that could pose a bit of a problem here because they're going up against a dang good Baylor defense. This will be one of the more difficult defenses I believe Ole Miss has faced all year long. Baylor's allowing just 19.2 points per game. Just 347.6 yards per game. That's about roughly 80 yards or so less than what Ole Miss is allowing defensively. We'll touch on them in a second. What Baylor is good at is stopping the run. And that is something that Ole Miss is very good at, is running the ball. So it's Ole Miss's rushing attack versus Baylor's rushing defense. Which one's going to give? Which one's going to win that battle? Because the Bears are giving up just 116.8 rushing yards per game. That's it. That's it. In the last 8 games, Baylor has allowed, the most yards they've allowed on the ground was 124. Last 8 games, the most rushing yards they allowed was 124. Keep in mind that Ole Miss is averaging 224 rushing yards per game. So 100 less than that. In the last 8 games, Baylor held 5 of their opponents to under 100 yards on the ground. Baylor's rushing defense is no slouch, guys. They got torched earlier on in the year against teams like Iowa State, Oklahoma State. After that, they tightened up. They fixed it. Dave Aranda fixed it, one of the better defensive minds in the game. Let's keep that in mind. And Baylor's rushing defense has been phenomenal. Keep in mind also that Baylor has 32 sacks on the year, 16 interceptions. The major key for Baylor here is shutting down Matt Corral. That's easier said than done. But Baylor, I have faith in them shutting down Ole Miss's rushing attack. Not shutting it down completely, but slowing it down. Not allowing 224 rushing yards per game. You make that running game almost a non-factor. Or whether getting only 1 or 2 yards per play, maybe even no gains. You're forcing Ole Miss behind the chains. You know, 2nd and 11, 2nd and 12, 3rd and long. Plays like that. Baylor's defense forces that. They're going to be in good shape. Can Ole Miss exploit Baylor's defense and execute and convert on those? Absolutely they can. We've seen them do it all year long. But it'll make life a lot more difficult. And again, Ole Miss is going up against one of the better defensive minds in the game, Dave Aranda, who in turn, of course, will be going up against one of the better offensive minds in the game in Lane Kiffin. So a great coaching matchup here. Ole Miss's defense, nowhere near that of Baylor's. The Rebels are allowing 25 points per game, 427.8 yards per game, 245.8 passing yards per game, and here's the key number. Here's the key number. We talked about Baylor shutting down the run. That's something that Ole Miss cannot do. The Rebels are giving up 182 rushing yards per game. 182 rushing yards per game. And that, if I'm Ole Miss, I'm worried about that. Especially when you realize how well Baylor runs, averaging over 214 rushing yards per game. Baylor can exploit it. Look at the numbers, guys. Ole Miss gave up 141 rushing yards to Texas A&M. They gave up 284 yards to Liberty. Yes, Texas A&M, or excuse me, yes, Ole Miss won in both of those games. But they did win the turnover battle in that game. They allowed 207 yards on the ground to Auburn. They lost that game. They allowed 222 rushing yards to Tennessee. They only won that game by 5. They allowed 350 rushing yards to Arkansas. They only won that game by 1, getting a stop on the last-second two-point conversion, one that would have won the game for Arkansas. So Ole Miss can be exploited on the ground. They rely on, obviously, trying to shut down the pass, but more than anything, they rely on trying to win the turnover battle. Ole Miss has forced 20 turnovers this year. And you look at the game against Liberty, the game against Texas A&M, Ole Miss probably was going to win those games anyways. But winning the turnover battle was crucial in those games. Winning the turnover battle against Arkansas was crucial in that game. If Ole Miss wins the turnover battle, they're probably going to win. You can say that about any team, but it's certainly the case for Ole Miss because their defense struggles to stop anybody. But they win the turnover battle, you know the offense is probably going to capitalize off of that with points because they're that good. So that's the key. Force turnovers. And if you're Baylor, you don't necessarily have to win the turnover battle. You just got to make sure you don't turn the ball over, period. You don't have to win it. Just don't turn it over. You do that, you're probably going to have success on the ground, and you're going to be able to put points on this Ole Miss defense. So I know we just threw a lot at you. We threw a lot at you number-wise. You know, again, a great offensive mind in Lane Kiffin going up against a great defensive mind in Dave Aranda. It's Baylor's rushing offense against Ole Miss's rushing defense. Baylor can certainly exploit it. We question whether or not Ole Miss's rushing offense can exploit Baylor's rushing defense. And if that's the case, Matt Corral's going to have to do what he's done all year long. That's practically win the game by himself. Be the Matt Corral show. Be Ole Miss's offense as one person. Guys, this Sugar Bowl is essentially a pick'em. It's essentially a pick'em game. The spread kind of varies, goes back and forth. Sometimes Baylor's favored, sometimes Ole Miss's favored, but it's usually hovering about a point, point and a half. Practically a pick'em. And for me, this is a very, very difficult game to call. Very, very difficult game to pick. But I think, personally, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to go with Baylor. Give me the Bears to take down Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl. Guys, I believe the run game is key. I believe the battle in the trenches is key. I look at the Baylor defensive line, the fact that they have, 32 sacks. Knowing that Ole Miss does not have the best offensive line in the world, I believe that Baylor is able to exploit that, pressure Matt Corral a little bit. I believe they were able to bully Ole Miss up front. They are able to put up a lot of rushing yards against this Ole Miss defense. And again, guys, in a battle between two offenses that are relatively even, Baylor owns the clear-cut defensive edge, and there's no denying that. Baylor owns the defensive edge. So if the Bears hold on to the football, do not turn the ball over, do not allow Ole Miss to win the turnover battle, Baylor will win this game, and that's exactly what we believe happens. And what is a back-and-forth, high-scoring shootout down in New Orleans, one that I believe can be an instant classic, we are taking Dave Aranda and the Baylor Bears to win 12 games, a Big 12 championship, and a New Year's 6 bowl win. Things are turning for the better down in Waco. Same can be said in Oxford, but it's Baylor that's going to carry that momentum into 2022, not the Rebels. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below, especially, guys, those expert picks over on the gridironexpert.com. Make sure to sign up for those today, guys. Do not miss out on that opportunity for the rest of the bowl picks, the NFL playoff picks, and everything we have to offer in 2022. Again, the link down in the description. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.